Honorable Men Discord, De La Hoya's Improv Clapback. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to another episode. As always, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I appreciate it. So De La Hoya, also known as AKA the Golden Boy, had some things that he wanted to say about the recent matches that took place earlier this month. So on May 2nd, they had the Fatal Fury, which was held in Times Square, which had a pretty interesting card. It had Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero. It had Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez. It had Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barbosa. And then it had Lavelle Whittington versus Rito Tutsumi. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. But I think the best thing about Fatal Fury was something new and interesting. The fact that they had it in Times Square was new and interesting because as long as I can remember, I don't think they ever had a boxing match in Times Square. So anything with a new aesthetic is, I think, good for the sport. What may not have been good for the sport, which, I follow this gentleman. I want to say his name is Showbiz. I follow his channel, and the downside to Fatal Fury, from what Showbiz said, was the fact that the lack of an audience. He felt as though the boxers would have performed better had there been a larger audience. Because if you look at the if you looked at the aerial view of the setup that they had for Fatal Fury, it had a very minimal crowd in attendance, because obviously having a fight in Times Square, there's not enough room to close off for a boxing match. Maybe they could have had a bigger area closed off for it, but in any event, that wasn't the case. So, was Fatal Fury a success? I don't know. I'll leave that for you to determine in the comments. For those of you who watched it, if there was anyone who's watching this episode who was actually there in attendance, let me know if you feel like it was a success. For me, I think I like the fact that they took a risk and had it outdoors and the way they had it set up. But from what I'm hearing from reviews, people overall did not like it. They felt like it just lacked performance from the fighters, which is why De La Hoya has this improv clapback. So that was May 2nd. Then May 3rd in Saudi Arabia, Canelo had a match, all right, which De La Hoya wasn't pleased with that match. But let me be correct with what I have to say with this. So Canelo Alvarez fought William Skull in Saudi Arabia. Now, based on what De La Hoya said in this improv clapback, Skull did everything but fight. It's as though he showed up just to run. I don't know if he was fearful of Canelo, punch, so he was running around the ring. But I don't know what my thoughts on that is. I definitely don't like watching boxing like that, and I prefer to see guys that are at the top of their class and they're going at it. One of my favorite fights that I could last remember was actually the Spencer Crawford fight. I don't think any fight that I've seen since that lived up to it. Although I was in attendance in the Barclays Center for when Davis fought Rolio. I thought that was a good fight. And I was actually going for the underdog. I was going for Rolio in that fight. But, as we all know, Davis pulled off a punch that he didn't see coming, and it just floored him. But let's get straight to what De La Hoya had to say in this improv clapback, and then we'll talk about it.
To turn out, to show up and fight and give the fight fans what the fans deserve. And those are great fights. Show up. Not just dancing around like Bill Haney and Devin Haney. I mean, my gosh, he was tagged a couple of times by Ramirez, and he just gets on his bicycle and just starts running for his life. Jesus. Anyway, he's done. Canelo. Jesus, Lord. Come on.
Well, let me put this out there. Everyone knows, if you follow boxing, that De La Hoya and Canelo haven't been getting along for the longest. Although they're both Mexican, at one point in time, I want to say De La Hoya was promoting Canelo, and I think that was a long time ago. That was around the time when Canelo fought Mayweather. I want to say that long ago. But they went their separate ways. Canelo chose to do something else, go with someone else. And Canelo has been vocal about how much he can't stand De La Hoya, and De La Hoya's been doing the same. So when you hear De La Hoya talk like this about Canelo Alvarez, don't be surprised. He definitely doesn't also get along with Devin Haney's father, which I could understand why. Devin Haney's father speaks more and causes more clickbait, if you want to say, than Devin Haney himself, and Devin Haney's the fighter. But it seems like his father does all the voicing of opinions on how Devin Haney fights, or how fights played out and things of that nature. I think his father needs to just take the back seat and just do whatever he does behind the scenes, whether it's coaching or advising or setting up deals. Whatever it is his father does, he needs to take a back seat and let Devin Haney just do his fighting, and let Devin Haney be a man. But let's continue.
You're getting paid all this money to fight against a runner who we all knew was going to run, a Cuban style. You chose him, and now you say you hate fighting runners? Well, then don't fight runners. We all know who we want to see you in against. That's Benavidez. Go up against Benavidez. Fight Benavidez. He won't run. What's wrong with that? It's a good fight. But it's sad. It really is. It starts from the top, too. I mean, when you're fighting for the money and not legacy, every young fighter just follows that pattern. And it's not fair. It's not fair to the organizers, the people putting up the money, the promoters, the fans especially. The fans want to see good fights. Let's go. It's the fighter's job to give the fight fans good fights. It's teed up for everybody. Turkey's bringing out his wallet and paying everybody, and the least we can give him is good fights. Go out there and fight. Anyway, I had to do this improv clapback, if you want to call it. I'm just frustrated. I'm frustrated. But, hey, we got Crawford Canelo. I'm looking forward to it. Even though they're both almost 40, I'm looking forward. It's a good matchup. But just show up and fight. Please, show up and fight.
All right, so first of all, what I love about... First of all, I'm a De La Hoya fan. I love someone who's passionate about what they do. And although he's retired, even in his retirement, and now he's a promoter, you can tell he just wants the best for the boxing world. As I would say, as does Mike Tyson, right? Because Mike Tyson expressed that too. These guys are passionate about what they did in the past, and even though they're retired, they're still passionate about the sport. Now, maybe I shouldn't have brought up Mike Tyson, because that last fight against Jake Paul was disgusting. I was so disappointed. I could go on and on about that fight, but why go on about that fight? I think they took us all for the money. We all thought we were going to go see something where Mike Tyson actually would have maybe gave us at least a round or two of effort. I wasn't expecting to see young Mike, but that fight was just disgusting. I think we could all agree on that. I think that's one thing we could all agree on. But as far as everything else that De La Hoya is saying, unfortunately, the cherry picking in boxing has been a thing. As far as Crawford is concerned, I believe there's been some issues with just being under Bob Arum. I think when you're signed to Bob Arum's promotion company, it's difficult to get certain fights. I think there's some people that don't like doing business with Bob Arum. And that's the thing about boxing that I can never understand. And anyone who's well versed in boxing, please educate me in the comments. There's just way too many divisions, way too many belts, way too many belts out there. Way too many belts. They gotta figure out a system where it's just like one division. If that works. If it doesn't work, for those of you who are well versed in boxing, if that doesn't work, please explain to me why it doesn't work. But boxing is very confusing. There's a lot of ducking and dodging, and I get it. These boxers, they want to make it worthwhile because they're out there training for like 3 months for a fight, and they want to make sure they're getting paid what they feel they deserve. But at the same time, I miss the days of De La Hoya. That was boxing where guys, whoever was at the top, they're like, I want that guy. They were ready to fight, like he said. They weren't worried about blemishes in their record. Mayweather started that to a degree, but I can't say Mayweather ducked anyone. And I'm also a Mayweather fan, as you may or may not have known. I know there's people that don't like Mayweather. They feel like he was a runner, but he's just a defensive fighter. But I love Mayweather's fighting also. But again, De La Hoya is from that era where, you show up, you show out. The money will come. Just show up and show out. And you gain a lot of respect that way. But we live in an era in 2025. This is why I feel like viewership in boxing is probably decreased. Why they have to come up with all these fancy ways of promoting Fatal Fury, Times Square, which I think is pretty much it. It seems like they're trying to steal ideas from what's going on in Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia, when they did that fight with Anthony Joshua fought in an event, so did Deontay Wilder out in Saudi Arabia. And the promotion and marketing for that event was unlike the normal or what we're used to seeing in boxing. And those fights, all those big names lost. I believe Anthony Joshua. I'm sorry, Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua lost, I believe, in that fight. So did Deontay Wilder, and it's also because these guys, these big names, they're not taking on the best of the best. They're knocking out people that they know they could beat, and so then when they finally meet competition, it's like an underperformance because we're expecting to see these guys who have these big great names. Anthony Joshua is signed to Under Armour. He has an Under Armour deal, and to me, he's never really shown any real fight in him, and that's no disrespect to Anthony Joshua, but I never considered him as a great pound for pound heavyweight. Tyson Fury, that's a brawler. That guy brawls. Love him or hate him, he brawls. The way he dismantled Deontay Wilder when they fought, it showed that he's a brawler. The guy could take a punch and he could also give a punch. I don't know. I think that I agree with Oscar De La Hoya and his sentiments. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but we need to see better fights. And as far as September 12th, I'm all for it. I can't wait. It's the Crawford versus Canelo. Hopefully it goes through. Hopefully there's no last minute change or the camp backing out because they don't like the money and stuff like that. I hope it actually, they stand on it September 12th and they carry it out because I want to see that fight. I want to see that fight just as much as I enjoyed watching the Spencer Crawford fight because that was a slugfest. And despite the outcome for Spencer, I felt like Spencer gave it his all. It was just that he was actually fighting somebody who was just far greater than him. But the Canelo fight, I don't even know what to expect. I don't think Canelo's going to back down, and neither will Crawford. So I expect to see a lot of blows thrown, and it's going to be a treat. It's going to be a treat, and I already checked my calendar. I'm off that day, so I will be locked in watching that fight. But what's your thoughts on all of this? What's your thoughts on what De La Hoya had to say about boxing as a whole? What's your thoughts on this past fight on the 2nd, the Fatal Fury in Times Square? What's your thought on Canelo's last fight on May 3rd in Saudi Arabia. What's your thought on boxing? Do you think boxing is no longer a sport that people care to watch? Do you think UFC took over? Or do you think maybe wrestling took over people's attention from boxing? What do you think it is? What do you think is the cause of boxing not being as sought after as it used to be, as it once was? But that's all I have on this topic. As always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.